Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live at the Waterhole, your daily midday dose. Well, I suppose it depends where you are observing all these wonderful animals in their natural environment. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I'll be your host for the next 2 hours. And it's great to, of course, be back. It's been ages since I last hosted a live at the Waterhole. So I'm in between doing the live drives here at Juma, and then, of course, 2 days of this wonderful magic. But if you have just stumbled across for the first time, it's great to have you on board. There are many different ways that you can chat to me because, yes, this is live and it's interactive. And as much as I love talking to wildlife, it's nice to talk to people. So all you have to do is either you can use or X, depending if you're from South Africa or not. And you can use the hashtag Wild Earth, or alternatively, if you're watching via YouTube, use the chat there. And it's even better if you head to the Wild Earth website and use the chat box that they have. Now, right now, we're in South Africa, but quite far north and a little bit to the west. And this game reserve is called Madikwe Game Reserve. It's the second largest privately owned reserve in South Africa. The first one is, of course, Swalu. And we've got elephants, we've got lots of Egyptian geese, and a beautiful waterbuck bull, all making the most of the delicious grass. So nice, so moist, so cooling. Isn't it great? And the camp that we're at the moment with this beautiful view is called Tau Game Lodge, just in case you're wanting to go and visit Madikwe. This is one fabulous place to stay. The lodge overlooks this wetland system and a big waterhole too, with loads and loads of action all the time. What always surprises me is the fact that there are elephants and waterbuck that are quite happily move around in this marshy area, even though there are so many crocodiles. They are everywhere in there, and a crocodile doesn't say no to much, so a waterbuck is something they definitely go after. Obviously a bit on the cheeky side if it decides to go for an elephant. Elephant will be very upset with the crocodile and will probably stomp it or try stab it with its tusks. Maybe it even grabs it with its trunk, swings it by its tail, throws it into another waterhole. Okay, I've never seen that happening, and there's maybe only a small chance. Perhaps you have a better chance of winning the lotto than seeing something like that, but I'm known to have unusual sightings, so you never know. Oh, Raw, thank you so much for throwing lots of questions at me. I love that. Um, you have specifically asked what got me interested in entomology. So if you don't know what entomology is, don't worry. It's sort of the study of insects. And I have no degree behind my name. I've actually got nothing other than I'm an insect enthusiast. I love it. It started off when I was a child, really. And I spent most of my time outside. As you can imagine, I had far too much energy to be inside. And I would go looking for hohos all the time. However, I didn't really know where to look. So I fixated on the grass that would grow up against the side of the house. And I would pull that back and it would reveal little spiders and earthworms and beetles and just all sorts of things. And then, much to my mother's dismay, I would collect them because why would I not? And I'd keep them in jars. And sometimes I'd forget to poke little holes in. I've told that story a couple of times. I've learned since I actually don't collect many insects unless it's for science, just to watch things develop. So it's just been a natural curiosity. And I suppose it carried on throughout my entire life. However, when I started working at Wild Earth in 2016, it's a long time ago, I needed to find something that was my speciality because all the naturalists were good at something specific. And I kind of was just a generalist. I was like, oh, what do I really want to get into? And then on the bushwalks that we would do with Wild Earth, I'd see so many insects everywhere. And, I had to really change the style of my walking Of course, I always, conduct nature walks. But it's sort of, I was like, okay, I need to not just be able to identify these insects or arthropods in general. I need to understand their behavior. So I started doing a lot of research, and now I'm obsessed. And I spend most of my time sticking my head into shrubs and, staring for all sorts of things shiny and any movement. And there we go, Catherine. You said, yay, good to have me back on live at the waterhole. It's wonderful to be back. Just going to keep working, although it's difficult to call this work, right? It's just so much fun to be surrounded by wildlife all the time. Now, even though we're talking about insects, you're probably going, Taylor, that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're looking at, but I can always link something back. And also, sorry, I'm trying to sit very still in my chair, but I get antsy, excuse the pun, antsy, and I squeak. You see, that's not a bird. I might have to change chairs. Sorry, everybody. I don't know how to sit down making so many noises. I'm panicking. But there are so many insects around. We just can't really see them right now. The giveaway is, of course, watching the elephant flap its ears. And then if you look at the waterbuck's backside, it's swishing its tail quite a bit. So all insects flying around. Occasionally, you'll get a glimpse of a dragonfly. They're remarkable aerial predators, and they'll catch all those flying insects. So we'll see. Maybe we get lucky at one of the other cameras. We find a dragonfly or something along those lines sitting nice and still, and then we can take a closer look. Otherwise, you're just going to have to join on the sunset safari where I put insects live every single day. For the sunrise safari this morning, I started with a caterpillar, a rather beautiful one though. Well, I think all caterpillars are beautiful. And then we go Joan Mello. Hello, hello, Joan. Nice to hear from you. I feel like it's just been such a long time. I think one of the last shows I did was in April this year. Gosh, it's been months and months. I'm also concerned with the population of Egyptian geese. We see this all the time on many different game reserves and especially golf courses where they just thrive. And it's not normal to have this many Egyptian geese around because they are quite territorial. Look at them. You can just see they're everywhere. Everywhere. There must be like 100 of, maybe not quite 100, but close to 100 individuals around here. And there's also a couple of, what are those at the back? Impala. Impala? I have to stick my head close to the screen to be able to see. It's so weird. I keep wanting to pick up my binoculars to have a closer look, but that's not going to help me. But anyways, so yeah, so there's lots of things kind of going on here. And this is what's great about the live cameras is that we also, I'm so sorry, you're going to hear a zzz, zzz. I'm sitting in the mission control studio at the moment. I'm here at Juma, and we had a lightning storm last night, and it struck a transformer, which means we don't have power. So we're using a backup battery system currently, which means the only place I have internet is actually in the mission control. But everybody's got their things here charging because it's like basically our only point of electricity. And someone's phone, someone is very popular. I suspect it might be Cedric. I don't know how to make it stop because it's not an iPhone either. And I can't move it because it's charging. Otherwise, I'd go put it somewhere else. Anyways, I'll figure that out at some point. Oh, look at the Egyptian geese. See, I was telling you how territorial they are. Now they're all fighting with one another. Settle down, geese. Settle down. And I don't know if it's just me. It's not particularly, I don't have much sound going on, but there's some. I can really just hear the blue waxbills, that sort of high-pitched noise. But I didn't hear the Egyptian geese. And when they flap their wings, they're normally quite vocal. There's a few zebra coming in to have a drink. Isn't this great? Look at this elephant bull and what he is up to at the moment. He's struggling to move through all that mud, leaving a nice channel, which I'm sure the crocodiles will appreciate to be able to move through. And it always surprises me as to how these elephants don't get stuck. I think if it was any deeper, it might have a chance of getting stuck. But luckily, this elephant is quite a big bull. It's got long legs. You can see he can't actually force them directly through the mud. He has to bring them out and lift them as high as he can. There we go. There's more stable ground. That's a great workout. Well done, chap. You did a phenomenal job. That's so great. Covered in mud. Now you need to do the same thing to the top of your body. You need to layer on that mud nice and thick. And he's just sort of thinking about what he's going to be doing next. He is smelling. You can see how he's twisting his trunk. The lodge is in the direction of where his trunk, the tip of his trunk is facing. So it could be guests that are standing on the lodge. Maybe the kitchen is prepping for lunch and he's interested in something. Otherwise, he's just going to make do with his own salad. Combination of grass and flowers, little herbaceous plants. How delicious. Doesn't that sound nice? But sadly, no balsamic vinegar to dress the salad. How disappointing. Hmm. Boys, sinking in again. There's nowhere that is safe in this area. It is sad to see how little water is around here. It's filled up with some of the rain, but not enough. You can see how the mud is already drying and starting to crack where that elephant is walking, really carefully placing his feet to not sink in anymore. And there's another water buck just over there. Oh my goodness, it's really, really quite hectic. It looks like a desert. So apologies if you hear all sorts of sounds outside. There's people are gymming now. So you're probably going to hear strange sounds. It's not me, I promise. And then, Jasmine, you're wondering if elephants often get stuck in the mud and then they suffer. So they can. Larger elephants, it's not as common. I'm going to go back to the adult elephants, but what tends to happen is young elephants get stuck in muddy waters more often. And the biggest issue is when we have scenarios like this, where you have a water hole that starts to dry out from the outside in, right? Because normally, the middle bit of the water might be in a slightly deeper depression, and it takes a bit longer to dry out. And those elephants have to move over the mud that is starting to dry out, but it's not completely dry. It's actually quite deceiving, and that's when the elephants will go, and it is like quicksand. Issue with Madikwe. Hopefully, we'll sort that out in just a moment. It also could be on my side. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. We will go back. Sometimes these things happen, as you can imagine, in the middle of nowhere. But we're now at Rosie's Pan, which is in Olifants West Game Reserve, which is not far from where I live. Now, just an eye out here. This is one of my favorite birding spots. And with Big Birding Day just around the corner. Oh, hello. There was a laughing dove just briefly. It's always good to get some practice. I feel like I'm a bit rusty at the moment. So I love it here. I've had some great sightings. We've seen all sorts of birds over the last year, should I say? And I used to have a favorite place. There was a rock and a stick, but I suspect that's probably moved around now. And Rosie's pan looks quite full. Look at that. Quite full indeed. So pleasant to see. Although you can see where the water was at one point. This might also be with elephants visiting and then just sort of splashing it up. But we also should keep an eye out for dragonflies. I feel like this camera is perfectly suited with the little bits of reeds sticking out. A lot of them have been trampled. Those make perfect perching points. We'll do a little scan. Oh, a hippopotamus. That's cool. There's lots of little terrapins. I'm sure there's plenty of catfish. But alas, some sign of life. Well, we might need some convincing, because at the moment, this hippo is fast asleep. And it's always fascinating to understand how hippos sleep in water. But in this case, it's great because the water's not too deep and the hippo's not standing. It's got its legs tucked underneath its belly and it's actually lying flat. And it's able to have its nostrils out of the water, which means it can continue breathing and have a snooze. Right? Life goals right there. And then, Raw, you're wondering about a couple of different things. I'm going to start with this one question, which is, how do terrapins appear miles away from waterholes? That's a really good question. We'll see if we can find a little terrapin head. They're quite quick, but we sometimes see them, or they keep their heads out of the water for long enough. So when we talk about terrapins, it's almost like a combination. It's like, I always joke and I say to kids, it's like a water tortoise. But of course, it is not a tortoise. But when you look at their feet, they've got claws, kind of like a tortoise does, but then they've also got partially webbed feet. And with those partially webbed feet, oh no, we're having a bit of trouble again. Please excuse this. We're going to head to the next camera, or if this stays like this, we'll just stay here, of course. Okay, there we go. We've rectified it. So those terrapins are able to leave the water and find a new resource. So as the pools and pans or dams start to dry up, there's a couple of little heads poking their heads out now, breaking the surface of the water. So they'll get out and they'll just move and move. And if everything does dry up, just like catfish, well, similar, they'll actually bruminate or estivate, or not bruminate, estivate in the mud. So they'll bury themselves in it and slow their metabolism right down and often emerge a little bit later. But otherwise, they'll just move. They'll just move and move. It's always fascinating after the first rains because we get all the little terrapins, which I like to call terrapines when they're small. I'm joking, that's not the official term. Don't say that in front of anybody. Though you start to see those little terrapins hatching and they move away from the big bodies of water. There's too much competition in them. They actually go into the little puddles on the road. So it's always going to be careful when driving through puddles on the road. Take it nice and easy just to give them a chance to move out. So kind of exciting. But if you watch a sunset safari, we'll try find some more terrapins. But it's getting nice and warm, so some of them might even be just sitting out basking in the sun. So we're looking for terrapins at the moment. There's not two hippos in the waterhole. Sorry, I got distracted. The other one definitely looked like nostrils. But I'm just reading some of the questions. And then while we wait to find a terrapin at some point, one might even come up and crawl onto the hippo's back. Wouldn't that be spectacular? There's also a question about tortoises. And where do the tortoises go when they estivate? So they don't bury themselves in mud like maybe a terrapin would do. They find themselves a little garage, and that garage could be a hole in a termite mound. It could be some kind of burrow. You see that fallen tree on the right-hand side, and there's a sort of hollowed out underneath. That would make a perfect resting point for a tortoise. So anything along those lines, which is really great. So it's quite funny. I've looked into a couple of termite mounds before with burrow systems that are not particularly active, like there's no spider webs or anything around them. And then you go, whoa, what's that? And it's a little tortoise just like, please, the rains haven't arrived yet. Leave me in peace. So that also happens. And you can hear a go-away bird whining. Oh, birds. Hello, laughing doves. And there's a something small. Look, there's a something small there. Oh, you see how they immediately reacted to the go-away bird? That was quite cool. The go-away bird went, "Ah!" And the birds just said, right, that's our cue to leave. But the fact that the go-away bird is not carrying on, shouting that there's potentially a predator nearby, makes me think that that bird was calling, oh my goodness, why does my brain do this? Was crying wolf. There you go. That's the old saying. You start to hear the European bee eaters. Oh, there's a little bird. Hello, are you just a southern grey-headed sparrow? We go up just a little bit. No, we're going to the trees. Although that's a good place to look for birds, is the trees. Okay, I think we're going to give this a skip. Let's head across to Tembe, all the way on the northeast coast of South Africa. Oh, we've got Nyala. Hello, Nyala. How are you doing, ladies? Some young ones and, of course, the mature females. Look how lovely and shiny their coats are looking. Bellies are nice and full with all the green grass that's around. Although it seems to be drying up in Tembe, which surprises me because the East Coast gets far more rain than we typically see where we are at the moment. And I'm going to check the weather because I'm also a little bit obsessed with following supercells and what they're doing. So I'm just going to open it up and see if there's anything developing. Nope, it's just a big weather system on the southeast coast of South Africa, so a little bit further down. But there doesn't seem to be anything pushing up. It doesn't look like there's really going to be any rain that side either, which is disappointing. So Tembe might have to wait a little bit. But it sounds like we're also going into some of the worst heat waves that Southern Africa has had. So that's going to be exciting. More Egyptian geese, probably fighting as they always do. Oh my goodness. Oh, how I have missed the big tuskers of Tembe Elephant Park. Look at it. So cool. I think we'll probably give the impala a skip, although I love them. But let's look at the giants on the right of the impala, and then we'll get back to them in a little bit. There's some females that are still pregnant that need to drop their lambs. In case you're wondering, no, I'm not controlling the camera. So I just have to wait for the zoomy to zoom a different way. But they don't always watch the show, which can be quite tricky. So Morgan, who's directing today. Hi, Morgan. It's so great to have you back. She'll let them know. Yes, we're getting we're slowly getting towards our goal of viewing the elephants. There we go. Two lovely bulls. Not the biggest tuskers we've seen here at Tembe. This area is famous for large elephants. It's still a place that's on my list to visit. I know a few people who have gone into that area and, in fact, visited regularly, and they've described it to me as like a combination of sections in the Kruger National Park, but then also Selous Game Reserve, which is now known as Nyerere National Park, which is in Tanzania, with the big wetland systems, the palms. So it's so pretty and such a diverse environment. 10 out of 10 would recommend. If you're from South Africa, might be a nice road trip to do with a family. Could head out down that way and visit an area. And there's not very many people that go there. So if you're like me and you're not a fan of many vehicles, I think you'd enjoy yourself. And, staying at one of the lodges will be great because I don't think you'd have to fight for many sightings. All the birds are very chatty today. There was a whistling duck, in case you were wondering, or a white-faced duck. I know they've changed the name and I can't ever remember what they've done. Changed it too. Loads of different things, but what a spectacular view. again, I would be so happy to bring a vehicle around and preferably sit in the shade, but I could spend all day here. Oh, look, the hardy-dars. They're having a bath. Elephant, please move to the left. We'd like to look at the bathing hardy-dars. Those are those birds at the back with the long beaks. And now we wait. They might end up moving away. See, look at all those birds. I've got to practice because I need to beat Cedric when we have our birding competition. Okay, so left we've got the hardy-dar ibis, and on the right we've got the white-faced ducks or whistling ducks. Now, I love hardy-dar ibises. They are such underrated birds. I quite regularly sit and watch them as they feed. Normally see them feeding out in open grassy areas. However, why not make the most of that long bill and probe it into the ground around a body of water? The mud will be nice and soft. I'm sure there'll be lots of little crustaceans and worms that we just can't see. Jesse, you've asked, when animals sandbath, does this not create more heat? So that when they dust bathe or sandbath, they're not actually doing it to keep cool. It's There's two different elements. So we'll talk about elephants for an example that dust bathe as well, and then let's talk about birds. So when birds dust bathe, it's a way to try and get rid of the parasites. So when you see them dust bathing, they, for the most part, they're not really sitting in coarse sand doing it. They're actually going after sort of soil that's a lot finer. Sometimes you'll even see them scratching around on the ground to loosen up the soil. And then they lower their bodies, they open up their wings slightly, and they flap away and wiggle about. And what that does is it ends up helping to get rid of some of the parasites, so by suffocating them. Look at that. Some birds don't enjoy water bathing. So, the hardy-does are, of course, enjoying themselves. It serves two functions. It helps clean the feathers, but it's also going to help them cool down. Also, you guys are having a whale of the time. But then just going back to Jesse's question, I would like to touch on elephants. I feel like elephants dust bathe for a slightly different reason. So when elephants dust bathe, quite often in the summer months, it's after they have covered themselves with water and then tossed mud all over their bodies to help keep them cool. And by adding that extra layer of sand, which I think is so smart, is they're now creating another barrier from the mud. And that means that the mud is going to also stay wetter for a long time. Again, we talk about the surface area that elephants have in the form of wrinkles. That mud gets into those little wrinkles. The mud on top dries or the sand on top dries, but in between those little crevices, the mud stays cooler for or wetter for longer, and that just keeps cooling the elephant down. Of course, it will help with getting rid of parasites, but I don't think as effective as birds when they do it. I mean, elephants, they don't have too many parasites on them, but they have big ticks, and I don't think a little bit of sand or dust is really going to suffocate them. Uh-huh. Sure. This is lovely. Thank you, Bar Kiwi. You said that you'd love to sit in the middle of a herd of elephants with me someday. Oh my goodness. Talk about therapy. I suppose it costs just as much to go on a safari as it does to visit a therapist. Very important to speak to somebody and get advice, and also to just help you cope with the challenges of life. I would love that. I'd love the opportunity. So let me know when you'd like to do that. Maybe we can go to Tembe and watch all these beautiful elephants. They're so lovely. Or to go to Amboseli and meet Craig, the largest tusker that walks this planet at the moment. And then, Catherine, you've said, are there any mammals that shed their fur for summer and winter to cope with temperatures? I just want to clarify, Catherine, are you talking about like they completely lose their hair in the summer? or and then grow it back in winter? Or are you just talking about that they've got two separate coats, like and a summer coat and a winter coat? So I suppose it's natural. Some animals will shed more than others, but then others there won't be a change in their hair or fur at all. So you look at a lion, and I don't think in the low felt, so the area of the greater Kruger, for an example, I don't think that there's much change in terms of body hair. And the reason why I say that is because we don't have drastically cold temperatures. Yeah, it gets a little bit chilly, but it very rarely goes below 0 degrees Celsius. And then during the days, they're warm. So, again, not quite like our summers, but an average day in winter, after it's, of course, like I said, warmed up, can get to anywhere between 25 and 28 degrees Celsius, which is lovely. So I don't think that there's necessarily any need of it. But what you do notice is when you go to colder climates, so if you move all the way to the Western Cape of South Africa, and let's use baboons as an example, the Chakma baboons that live on the Western Cape look so much bigger, but it's because they've got more body hair. They look so fluffy, but they need it to deal with the wind and the rain and the cold temperatures. It's really miserable for most of the year in the Cape Town uh, region and the surrounding areas. Whereas here, like I said, it's so lovely, it's so pleasant. And then, of course, an elephant doesn't grow more hair than it needs. They've just got these little bristles on their bodies, but it doesn't play a part in keeping them warm. They're too sparse from one another. So I'll just wait for you to elaborate a little bit more. But again, you look at an impala and what they do to cope with the cold temperatures. I haven't really noticed a change in their coats. You don't see a lot of fluff loose. Like think about when you brush a German Shepherd, right? When they're shedding, and you just get those clumps of hair that start to form, and you can grab hold of them and pull a chunk out, of course, without hurting the dog. And then the newer hairs are just underneath it. So yeah, it's interesting. But like I was saying, with the impala and some other antelope species, when it gets a bit chilly, they perform something called piloerection, where they just erect their hair, and as the hair moves up, warm air can then be trapped within the coat. It's like a little electric blanket, if you will, around their bodies. Not quite, but you get the gist of it. Okay, let's going to see what will happen next with these elephant bulls. This one on the right is approaching with intent. Look at that swagger. The one on the left seems completely unperturbed. But that could change in a hot second. So now he's giving him the side eye. Pushing and shoving, or you're just coming over to say hello? I think they want to share the same shade. Well, that's nice. That's perfect. There's more than enough room there, even just giving it a slight nudge. But there's no real aggression being showed here at the moment. This is just great. Happy, two buddies relaxing next to one another. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to head across to Rosie's pan once again to see some more elephants. You won't believe who has just joined me at this elephant pool party. It's Trushala.
Hi everyone! I hope you're doing well and that Taylor is taking care of you. Bye!
Neglecting everybody as usual. Okay, well, this could be fun. We're now back at Olifants West Game Reserve, where we've got elephants and the hippopotamus. Hippopotamus, how do you feel about this? I'm joking. I stole Trishala's joke from yesterday when we were sitting with Dewey, who's a regular hippopotamus that we see in one of the waterholes here at Plymouth Private Game Reserve. And I thought there was a second hippo, but in hindsight, maybe it was just elephant dung floating in the water. Listen, I make that mistake all the time. Not me in the swimming pool, but when I'm looking at wildlife, then it becomes, I find something a little bit tricky. And there's a lot of dung floating around in this water. So as long as the elephants give this hippo space, I don't think it could be worried at all about advancing to the elephants or getting out and running away. But maybe there was a second hippopotamus here that was actually already left the water. Or is that it to the left? of that other hippo. See, there's something moving. Are you just nostrils or are you done? I think it might be nostrils. Yes, move to safety, please. And we'll find out soon enough. Anyways, we'll see. Elephants can be a bit on the nosy side too, and hippos are typically protective over the water. But with Rosie's pan being so full, it's actually the fullest I think I've ever seen it. I think it should be fine. But just elephants, just keep to the left. There's no need to go all the way around and harass the hippo. But there's always one, right? Like there's always one person, there's always one child, there's always one elephant. There's a bee in its bonnet and wants to chase everything around. Now some oxpeckers are also making their way into the area. They've just landed on the hippopotamus, because why would you want to drink on the edge of the water and burn your feet when you can just sit on a hippo? I don't think their feet burn very much. Quite hard, quite tough, almost not quite calloused, but it can endure a lot. However, I would also have to sit on the hippopotamus if I wanted to take a sip of water. Please don't do that, though. That would end very badly for you. There, now you can hear the European bee eaters. Be nice if one swoops past so we can have a look. But these two bulls are just going to play around now. Slap their trunks on the water. I think the bull on the left is kind of saying, come on, let's have a little bit of a tussle and some fun. And then I have no idea what the one on the right is doing. It's sort of feeling around at the bottom of the water for something. Bring up a stick. Oh no. Trying to grab trunkfuls of that silt and toss it over its body. Running Bear, you said that you love watching elephants in water. Really good therapy. Once again, you will never see an elephant that's unhappy in a body of water unless a crocodile grabs its tail. Different story. But they have so much fun. Now, this waterhole's not deep for the elephants, but just to get a bit of reprieve from the heat is good enough. But they love to swim. So we'll probably need about another 300 mils of rain, and that will top all the dams up so nicely. Mercedes Beanie, you said that hippo is getting bothered again. It is. I think, though, this is the other thing. Oh, that's a good splash. I always like to rate the splashes when the elephants defecate. Let's see this one. Ooh, that was a goodie. There was quite a bit of backsplash there. Wait, no, I think the second one was the best, but there's one more coming out. Looks like there's going to be more force involved here. See how its tail is raised away for its body? Not quite finished. There's something in the pipeline. Maybe it's just going to give up. No? Not yet. Okay, maybe we'll save it for later. I was saying something and now I got horribly distracted. Story of my life. Sorry, I get excited when I see certain things, and then I'm like, I have to ask it for him. What did I say? What did I say? Did you remember what I said? And then, Catherine, you said that in therapy with myself and Trish is what you need. Trish has left me now. It's just Brendan outside. He's using kettlebell and he's doing squats. And I'm just narrating what he's doing, and he's panicking. And I like to make people feel awkward. It's one of my special talents. But Trish left. She was faffing around on the first aid kit, but she didn't seem to need help. So maybe she's just looking for a plaster or a rehydrate or something along those lines. But anyways, everybody's okay. Too soon to panic. Although I really wish there was a drink service here. Like if I had a bell that could go la 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 la. I mean, I don't know why I made that sound. There's no bell in the entire world that goes la 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 la. Why would I do that? Ding 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 ding. Anyways, we have strange bells in our neck of the woods in Hookspray. And it would be great. Maybe someone could bring me some peanuts and raisins if I say that out loud enough. Who knows? Do you think I should just message Trishana and just be like, hey, Trish, my drink's empty. Do you think I could have some more ice cold water? And then when she gets here and she goes, here we go, ma'am. I go, thank you very much. Oh, I forgot to order the peanuts and raisins, and just send her back and forth. She'll probably use a book and knock me out if I did that. So I'm too scared to mess with Trish. But anyways. Oh, okay. This is super cool. Thank you, elephants. We love you, but we're going to go all the way to Victoria Falls. The vultures are about to have lunch. Look at this. Look at this. I love this so much. This is incredible. So, again, we're at Victoria Falls Safari Lodge. This is fantastic. Lots and lots of vultures. Now, again, if you have just started watching and you're going, Taylor, did you just say the vultures are being fed? Yes, I did. So, unfortunately, vultures are disappearing at an alarming rate, and most of them are labeled as critically endangered, which is very sad to have that status. So, what places are trying to do is actually feed the vulture. So we'd call it a vulture restaurant. Maybe there's a carcass of some kind. You can see the carcass looks like it's on the top right. There's some vultures pulling some things around, and then it's everywhere. It won't last very long. And that will encourage the vultures to move into this area. And unfortunately, you can see all the guests on the bottom right hand corner. They're so excited. That must be amazing. And where was I going with this? The marabou storks having the fights with the vultures. That's hysterical too. So this is just such a spectacular thing to witness. There's no audio or no sound on this camera, but I can promise you, you'd be loving that. It's great now that they've had a feed, so many of them having a drink of water. Where I was going with my first train of thought was, with the vulture species decreasing, and most of it is due to humans. Now, of course, we don't do things maliciously, but unfortunately, we do have a large negative impact on the environment. But there are people out there who are desperately trying to change that, and hopefully, we're able to rectify our ways. We need to do everything that we can. Vultures get electrocuted, vultures end up being poisoned by carcasses, whether it's farmers trying to get rid of small predator species like jackals or caracals or something along those lines that could be eating their livestock. Vultures, unfortunately, fall victim to that as well. They're used for traditional medicines. In some cultures, the sangomas, the witch doctors, the traditional healers believe that if you have the head of a vulture, you'll be able to see into the future. And that's because vultures' eyesight is so good. They can see many kilometers in distance. Of course, please don't kill the vultures for that. I'm sure if you're wanting to be able to predict the future, isn't there those, why can't I remember them? I never had those what are they called? The 8 balls that you sort of shake and then it tells you what's going to happen. I don't know, something along those lines. But we don't need to use the vultures. But that was quite quick. I don't know how big the carcass was or what they actually used. I need to go and do a bit of reading about this area. I think this is the first time that I'm seeing it on one of the Live at the Waterhole shows. I do host some of the AfriCam shows too, so I've spent a bit of time here. Oh, okay. I believe that Morgan said to me briefly, she said she saw chickens that were being fed to the vultures. So not a big meal at all. Don't worry, the chickens were dead. They didn't just throw live ones in there. They wouldn't know what to do with the live chicken because they are unable to kill their own prey. Of course, there are exceptions, but with a lot of the vulture species, they've got these massive stubby toes. And they do have big, powerful beaks, of course, for tearing flesh off, but they would struggle to, of course, kill it. Bye, Jordan. Jordan's going off now. Tulu is coming to take over and to make sure that I am behaving. Well, it's such a pity that we can't hear the. That's kind of the sounds that the vultures make. Again, not really, but something along there. That's my best impression. So another behavior that we can look for now that the vultures, for the most part, have finished eating. Of course, we've been seeing them drinking, but there's more water around here. And what would be superb to just round the sighting off is to head, and not to head, is so the vultures go and actually bathe in water. We think of vultures as being dirty, disgusting creatures covered in carrion, rotten birds, but I see them bathing a lot. They'll go, not quite submerge themselves in water, but flap around, just like what we saw the Hadida ibises doing. And then the fact that they don't have any very, very little feathers on their head, you know, there's not much putridness on them. So they do stay quite clean. Trying to figure out which vultures are which. There's quite a few white-backed vultures in there, but it's really tricky to see. I'm just trying to think because it looks like there's a couple of much larger species of vultures in there, but I don't know. I don't know if they see Cape vultures. That would be surprising. I don't know. There's also hooded vultures that are in there. Again, this is where I need to get the binoculars out. Joan, you've said that it seems like there's more vultures every single day. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, when word gets out that there's regular feeding going on in a particular area, just like how elephants pass information on to one another, of course, all animals will do this. They communicate in various ways. The vultures will be doing the same thing. And if it's often enough, why would they want to go anywhere else when there's constant food? Look at the warthog there. Come back, warthog. Warthog, come, go into the puddle of water, chase the vultures away like Pumbaa did. I normally don't bring in Lion King references, but wouldn't that be so funny? That the scene where Simba is lying out in the open and then the vultures start circling him, and then Pumbaa and Timon come charging in like a bowling ball or a steam train, which is quite entertaining. So I wonder what the warthog is doing here. Some of you might remember, I think it was earlier this year or last year, at oh my goodness, the Jamala, yeah, at Jamala in Madikwe. Sorry, I forgot the name of the lodge. I love that waterhole too. And there was a zebra that unfortunately got stuck in the mud and drowned. And some of you may remember a family of warthogs came through and they devoured the carcass. It was crazy to see. So, you know, pigs and hogs in the Suidae family, they will eat anything. So, coming to snatch up the scraps. There we go. It's going in. So we'll see now. It's got its nose. It's very busy on the ground. So I think it is picking up a few scraps. Are you going to go into the water now? You're going to have a drink. You're going to have a wallow. But that's such a funny sight. And you can see that the vultures aren't really perturbed by its presence either. They all just move out of the way. The warthog doesn't even stop. That's funny to see the warthog really owning a place. And then, Paul, you said, do they remember, do they return daily because of their memory? Oh, absolutely. I mean, animals are highly intelligent. We don't really give them enough credit. And I think that's because we don't understand how animal communication works. So you can read about it, but actually understanding their level of intelligence is difficult. I think with AI technology now, that's going to be different, and we're going to start to understand more, especially since they've worked out recently that elephants even use names to address one another. So, similar things can be used in other social animals, and we're just going to learn more and more about it. So I think they know. You might even find that there's some vultures that are residents. It's very difficult, of course, to just look at vultures and know exactly who you're talking about. But some of them get tagged. Something could have happened to them, and then veterinarians get involved, or maybe there's a vulture project. They'll come and collect them, help them get to their best health, and then release them again, and then they'll tag them. Or they might just be tagged. They might have a tracking device, and they are, just being followed, so people can learn more about their movement. So that would be a way to identify them, but not every vulture has a tag on it. It wouldn't be great if they all had tags on them, but of course it is important for research. But they've eaten their fill, they've had a drink of water, they're all starting to take off now. Those that have got nice full crops will probably just rest up in the trees. What a successful day! We've got our meal, and carry on. Some of them might even just take off, catch a thermal, and go to another location. So there's so many different things that could happen here. There's the warthog now. You can actually see it's got hold of a carcass, and it's even almost using its hooves to hold it down. And it's tearing chunks of flesh off of it. Not easy for them to tear chunks of flesh off, right? But it will do its absolute best. There's a vulture desperately waiting to get in. Now, oh, another warthog. It's got like quite protective over the space. Chased it away. My bones, my carcasses, my vulture friends. That's what I imagine the warthog is saying. So, with it being so dry at the moment, I don't know how much rain Zimbabwe has had. To be quite honest, I don't follow the rainfalls all the time. But, when it is really dry, we do start to see warthogs looking for, better sources of food, more nutritious. And of course, going straight to protein is a great source of that, because the plants are not going to have high values of crude protein when they start to dry up. Gosh, from chaos to absolutely nothing. Okay, well, it's not nothing. I'm being quite dramatic, but I'm known for being dramatic. Love that the warthog is just occupying the only shade right near the water hole. Looks like it's chewing on something. Oh, that's crazy. Almost nothing left. And you can sort of see that there's some bones around, a couple of them. I wonder what the hyena activity, the spotted hyena activity, is like around this area. I've never seen hyenas here, but to be fair, I've also never visited this lodge, and I don't know too much about this place. You know, it's one thing reading about all these things, but it's so nice to go there and experience it for yourself and really get that inside information. So I love the cameras because it's great because if I do visit these areas, I have got some knowledge from watching on the cameras and not actually being there. So it's definitely something to take into consideration and why you should continually watch all these live wildlife shows or keep track of cameras. I mean, there's live cameras of all sorts of wildlife all over the world, so you can make the most of it. Okay, we're going to change the scenery a little bit. Warthog, we might come back to you, but we were speaking about terrapins earlier. Let's head off to King's Camp in the Timbavati and see what's around the water's edge. Aha! Here we go. So, like I said earlier, we were trying to figure out where the terrapins were, and there was a bit of discussion. And one of those questions was, how do terrapins move away from water? So here's a great example. Look, of course, unfortunately, we can't zoom in too much, but you might be able to see its claws. You see that with the semi-webbed toes? And we just get the two species. We get the marsh and the serrated hinge, and both look very similar to one another. Again, my quality of a feed is not wonderful because of the lack there of internet. We have to do things, of course, to try and make it work better so we can put the show out. It's quite complicated and technical. Um, and oh, we can go closer. Ah, okay, you all have to tell me because I want to see who's watching. If you look at that terrapin, look below its eyes and its nostrils and above its upper lip, right? Now we need to know, is it clear, bright white? Okay, take into consideration that it has got some mud on it. Or does it have tiny little lines, sort of vertical lines running the length of it? Now, you can also see the small little tentacles underneath the chin of you carry on going down where the throat is. You can see it breathing, basically. These two little tiny tentacles. Marsh terrapins normally have them, but you can also see them on serrated hinge terrapins. Now, to me, I'm just looking, I mean, it's obviously a beautiful terrapin. I can't really see if it's clear white, so I'm almost inclined to go for a serrated hinge terrapin. But let's see if it turns its head. And that's, for me, honestly, that's the best thing to look for because we normally just see the heads of the terrapin. So, sorry, you see when we go in quite close like that, even if there's just a little bit of wind, it does shake the camera around. So, I promise you don't need to bang the side of your TV or your computer screen. It's just Mother Nature. But then I'm looking. Oh, I can't see. That's an interesting technique. Difficult to move onto that log. Look how it's raising its head up. So nice and high now. All sprawled out. Yes, turn your head a little bit. Turn your head. Turn your head. And there's a fly sitting on its back. There's the insect I was talking about. I think this is actually a marsh terrapin. Now I can just see, like I said, it's a little bit on the dirty side, so it's tricky to see. But with its head in the sun, it's illuminating its face lovely. So I'm going to go with this and say that this is actually a marsh terrapin. And the marsh terrapins get enormous. It's also known as the African helmeted turtle, but we don't call them turtles. We call them terrapins because turtles have got fins and they live in the ocean. Not always the case, of course. Man, I'm the go away birds again. So if you look at that upper lip, if it was a serrated hinged terrapin, you'll see lots of these fine black lines, which this one does not have. It's always tricky to see the hinge because that's something we obviously want to jump straight to. We can go, I can't see the hinge, but it's not easy. William, you've said, can animals suffer from heat stroke? Absolutely, they can. They can also get oh gosh, what's wrong? Like hypothermia. We call it cold shock, which is something that animals, especially young animals, tend to die from. So it's important that they are able to regulate their temperature, which is why they do so many different things. Like they'll cool down via evaporation. So think about how birds will open their beaks, just an example, and they perform something called the gular flutter, and that will help cool themselves down. Look at crocodiles, how they open their mouths. Well, that's another opportunity. Look at how birds will bathe in water, or elephants will go and cover themselves in water and mud. These are all mechanisms to keep them cool. Of course, elephants also use their ears to cool themselves down with the low, big supply of veins and blood vessels being so close to the surface, and the ears being so thin. As they move it, it cools the bloodstream down directly, and then that filters through the whole body and goes to the brain. I think there must be high temperatures going on inside my head, and that explains why I've got so much brain fog. Maybe, maybe not. Uh, but anyway, so it's nice to see a terrapin up close. I do wish it was on the back of the hippo, but it's still great to see. It is interesting that it has its neck stretched out like that and constantly moving, looking around too. They need to be careful of aerial predators, birds of prey, and all those types of things. Not that I think anyone would really enjoy eating a terrapin. The reason why I say that is because of those nasty stink glands. Great defense mechanism, though. But we all make the mistake of going, oh, terrapin, let me pick one up. And you only pick it up once, and that's it. It's a beautiful waterhole, though. King's Camp is also an amazing place to go. They've got a phenomenal photographic hide, which is good. So if you are a budding photographer, they've got reasonable rates as well, and not too, not super remote. I mean, it's just outside Hoedspruit, just down the road, as they say. So basically, William, if they aren't able to cool themselves down sufficiently, then yes, they're more than likely to suffer from heat stroke. But they are able to adapt to more extreme conditions than we are. But also, if you were to bring someone from, let's talk about the UK, right, England, and you bring them to the Lowveld for the first time, where the temperatures are a lot cooler, there's the hide that I was telling you about. It's so beautiful, and basically they will not be used to this weather. It's one of the reasons why I like to work out during the middle of the day when it's at its absolute hottest, because I'm starting to build up a tolerance. I acclimatize to the areas, and then I don't feel the heat as much. After all the time that I spent in Makuleki, which is just north of Pafuri in the Kruger National Park. It's a private concession but borders on Mozambique and Zimbabwe. I talk about this place all the time. That's some of the hottest area I've been into, and especially because I was living in a tent. Oh, there's a second terrapin. Climb, climb, climb. And walking and doing sort of the trails guide training was sure. We would walk for hours upon hours in the heat of the day. But we managed. We got used to it though, and we survived. Well, not we, I did. I definitely did. So they'll get used to it. So there's all those differences. It's unbelievable how these things can climb. You just look at them sometimes. My favorite is when they decide they're going to drop off and how they just push with their back legs and bring their front legs in and then just sort of inside and plop back into the water. So, Mindy, you've asked if I can go over the differences between tortoises, turtles, and terrapines. So yes, I absolutely can. Look at me. That's Trishala on the right hand side, and then I'm looking for cover. shade. I'm using my own shell to shade myself because I always wear a hat. I always have a pea cap on. It never leaves my head. In fact, it's attached. What judgment I'm getting now from that terrapin. But anyways, let's go through the differences. Let's start with the terrapin. So as you can see, Mindy, the terrapin on the left-hand side cannot retract its head all the way in. I love this because they're actually showing you some of the differences. The fact that terrapins, as we discussed a little while ago, they have got claws and sort of partially webbed toes. That's going to help them swim a bit better. The shells are also sort of more laterally compressed when we start to look at tortoises, depending on the species, but for the most part, they're quite big and not round. I can't use the word round, but I don't know my shapes. Oh, Trisha's not here. I can't even ask her now. She ran away again. She knows I'm going to rope her in and make her work. She's clever. She just pokes her nose in every now and then. Okay, we're going to say bye to the terrapins. We'll continue with that, Mindy, but let's quickly go to Rosie's pan. The hippo is being harassed. Okay, I promise, Mindy, we're going to get back to that because it is great. I don't think those terrapins are going anywhere. We'll just take a moment to witness some action. That elephant is desperately trying to do a headstand. We're going to have to try a little bit harder. It looks like it's bent its front legs, just with its bum and tail in the air. And I think we might have just missed it where oh, there are two hippos there. Oh, crazy. Where the elephant was harassing the hippopotamus, but I was too slow. I wasn't quick enough. Tulu was telling me, go, 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 go. But if this camera is frozen, we're going to go back to the terrapins. Maybe, oh no. Stay, work, camera, work. Leave that elephant, leave that hippopotamus alone. That's unnecessary. Come on, two hippos. Turn on the elephant. I'm surprised they're not reacting just yet. Turn around and show this elephant your big teeth. There you go. Now it's turning around. The little tail looks like it's propelling itself forward. The little submarine, yes. Tell it off. This is my waterhole. I live a very aquatic lifestyle. You go somewhere else. Good job, hippopotamus. Oh, and Tulu is telling me that apparently yesterday you had a very similar sighting, but the hippo waved its white flag and had to leave. So how the tables have turned. Ah, wonderful. Now it's pretending to be a rock again. Great. Okay, let's go back to the terrapins just so that we can finish up what we were talking about. Okay, we're back at King's Camp again. So Mindy, we started going through the terrapins. I'll just quickly go over it all again. Terrapins cannot fully retract their heads back into their shell. They've got claws and partially webbed toes. They also live in freshwater environments. Then we go to a turtle, and turtles have got flippers, fins, not something that we would typically see on a tortoise or a terrapin. And those are designed to help them propel through the water. They cannot retract their heads at all. They can move them to the side, but there's not much protection, unfortunately. I like that terrapin. Look at me, I've got no legs, I'm bipedal. This is how evolution works. Just keep trying and trying. Do you think I'm funny?
I think Taylor is hilarious.
Look, you see, bipedal terrapin.
We're watching evolution in the making.
I know, 100%. Bye, Trish. Trish is going to host one of the grand tours now that's happening. So all the guests that have come out are going to be very happy to wish you luck. Okay, bye. She didn't even give me a high five. Now my feelings are hurt. Okay, now let's go. Oh, and then the turtles, of course, live in the ocean. Sorry, for those of you that don't know me at all, I get distracted really easily. My ADHD is on another level, so I go around in circles. And then the tortoises. The tortoises are also wonderful. We're seeing lots of them at the moment. Serrated hingeback terrapins. I'm making things up now. And then we also are seeing leopard tortoises, which are my favorite. And they're quite amorous at the moment. So we'll Look at that. You put your left leg in, you put your left leg out. No, I said that twice. Okay, I'm going to sing that song. I haven't sung in a while. But, anyways, so great. Tortoises, no webbing between their toes. They've got claws. They can retract their heads all the way in. And for the most part, they live on land. Good news, everybody. I thought Paul was coming in. He's frightened by the fact that I'm doing the show. I was hoping that he'd come and join us too and make him chime in as well. That's a nice thing about sitting in the mission control studio in Juma, is that everyone is coming in. But we've got a different scene now from the terrapins. We've got two Egyptian geese. We've got a Burchell starling, and then we also have another species of starling. Running Bear, you said bye, Trishala. I'll have to send her a message to tell her that you said goodbye because she's no longer here. I think she's just gone for the night, but we'll miss her dearly. Camp is very quiet without her. It was such a nice surprise to, of course, come back to camp and see her. Oh, look, you see, even the Egyptian geese are performing the Gula flutter, which I was telling you about. That's one of the ways that they keep cool. They're actually demonstrating two different ways. They're in the water. That's, of course, going to cool their body temperatures, and then the additional. So they must be feeling great. Mindy, you said awesome, Taylor, and you said that I'm a hoot. Or she's a hoot. Am I a hoot or Trishala's a hoot? Because I feel like Trishala is more of a hoot than I am. Together, it's magic. Let's see what else comes around. It'd be nice if some buffalo, not just some buffalo, like 500 buffalo made their way down to the water's edge. That would be very special. Very special. And of course, look, Sahadi to Ibis again. Look at that. Also doing the Gulak flutter. Everybody is trying to cope with the heat. We're going to see more birds water bathing today than ever. And again, that's something we can keep going this afternoon as we're out on the live safari. These birds are so underrated. Look how beautiful they are. I mean, just their coloration. They've got iridescent feathers, so depending which way the light refracts off of the feathers, you sometimes get like a glossy green sheen. You get sort of these bronze colorations. And I love that white cheek stripe that they've got, and then also a little bit of red on the feet and the bill. Ooh, got a bit of a fright. A starling flew overhead. That's so great. Oh, something else just flew behind them, and I don't know what it was, but it was orange. I thought, did it have a long tail? Was it a paradise flycatcher? I don't know. Maybe it comes down to have a drink. You might have caught a quick glimpse of it. There you go. Drink your water. It's going to maybe start feeding again now. This is a great view. There we go. Look how it's probing not the surface, the bottom. No, you're not really doing much though. I don't think you're putting that much effort into it. So I think I'm just going to give you all a moment just to listen to the calls of the virtual starling. I love all these low angle shots, and there aren't too many of the cameras that have this view. I'm wondering who's watching that's not from South Africa, and if you have any ibis species at home. There are quite a few of them distributed throughout the world. I'm just trying to think where we're going to go. Let's go to KwaMaritan to have a quick look at some more elephants, but it sounds like there's some youngsters in amongst the herd. No, come back. They're leaving. Sorry again, I get distracted. There's a blacksmith lapwing, also the black and white bird on the left. But looks like most of them have already had a drink and splashed themselves with mud, but there's still two youngsters. Yes, come out and play. What are you doing with your trunks? There's a little bit of grass left on the edge, but I don't think that that's what the calves are going after. Nice and wobbly, wiggly trunks. Look how thin that trunk is, too. It's like it's just extended. It's like a millipede. Yes, turn back. Come for a second dousing of water. It's too soon to leave. You'd think on a day like today where the temperatures are just, exceeding 100-degree Fahrenheit, around about 38, 39 degrees Celsius, that they'd spend longer periods of time rather than just having a quick drink and then moving off. Quite curious to see what this elephant on the little elephant on the right does now. If it's going to follow the other individual, then let's head to some more elephants. Let's go to Namibia and check out Safari Hook. Oh my goodness. I should have come here first. There's so many of them. I love the little island as well as a safe place for the blacksmith lapwings to hang around. Oh my goodness. Come to the left, elephants. Come this way. That's nice deep water. Much better than Rosie's pan. The little ones are having to use their snorkels now. Oh, wow. And then I never understand why they've got to be all clustered on top of one another. Like there's so much water spread out. Give each other a chance. They can't help themselves. We're a family and we have to stick together. Well, we're back at Juma. This should look. Are we? Yeah, we are. This should look nice and familiar with all the impala around, just in the shade. That's, I think, what we're going to be seeing a lot of today. We need to get the fish eagles back and the saddle-billed stork. There was that youngster yesterday, if you caught the start of the sunset safari. I spent quite a bit of time with them. There was a lot of action. I'm so tempted to walk down to Gari Dam. I really want to see how many catfish in that pool of water. I don't, not that I want to catch any of them. I just think it's just so fascinating. I went past, did I go past it this morning? Sort of, actually, no, not really, because we were with Tlalamba, a female leopard, and her youngster. So I didn't actually go down into that waterhole. But I imagine this afternoon it's going to be almost dry. There can't be much left. But we'll have a look. We'll swing the camera around at some point, and then we'll just double check to see what is going on. So much competition. We also need a marabou stork to come down now and just feed on everything. Wouldn't that be great? Just a bird delight. Absolute magic. But Impala, we love you too. You're great. We appreciate you. Looks like the female on the left-hand side is ready to give birth. Look how her stomach is completely dropped. Her hips are sticking out. She looks very uncomfortable. Same thing with them, the ewe on the right-hand side. You notice that? And of course, the lambs inside are getting heavier and heavier. But just before up until they about to give birth, their stomachs don't, distend like that. So that's another good indication that they're going to give birth. I'm still hoping one of us get to have a live impala birth. Imagine we could even sit and see one here while we're watching the live cameras. Wow. There we go. There's the pool of water. There's not much left in it. Gosh, it's dried out so much since yesterday afternoon. I reckon maybe another day and a half with the temperatures that we're having. If obviously we get a bit of rain in the evenings, it's going to top it up a bit, but not very much. Like last night, the rain sounded a lot worse than what it actually was. The lightning was just insane. At one point last night, I actually got a fright because it was so hot. So I was sitting outside, I had my door open, trying to let as much cool air in as possible. Obviously, can't go to sleep with the door open because, leopards and lions and all sorts of things, hyenas that will drag you out. And I was just sort of sitting on the step trying to not fall asleep. And then eventually I went into the room. But as I sort of stood up, there was this huge crack of thunder. And I got such a fright. I slammed the door closed, and it made me laugh because Trish, there's the fish, happened to message me at the same time going, I just got the biggest fright of my life. And I was like, I was outside when that happened, and I ran and I locked the door like something was going to come in and get me. And then that was it. And then I just lived with the mosquitoes. Rosie Adams, you've said that I am to be admired. And that unlike so many, you have made your ADHD work for you, for us, and for the animals, birds, arthropods. You devote your time to helping and inspiring. Thank you very much. That's very sweet of you to say, Rosie. I really struggled. I did not know what I wanted to do. We're going to keep watching the catfish with their tails popping out. And I struggled through school. I didn't enjoy it. I loved the sport aspect. And, I obviously loved the different subjects, but I started to lose interest after a while. I don't like the boxes that you're put into school, and it doesn't suit everybody, especially the minds of the creatives, like when we just want to break barriers all the time and we see the world slightly different. And I went off of my medication. I've spoken about this before, and I was on medication for ADHD for most of my life, or my school life. And when I trained to become a guide, I was really stressed. I was worried, am I going to make it? Because every time I went off my medication, my school marks plummeted. And so I had to stay on it, but I wasn't really myself. And it was the best thing ever. For nature. And, I do this thing where I look at something, I find it, and I have to identify it immediately. And I suppose that's not the worst thing, right? Not the worst addiction. So, anyways, I do things like that. And then Running Bear, you said that your mother would have enjoyed watching Wild Earth. Oh my goodness. I think so. I'm always so surprised as to how many people put on Live at the Waterhole or the Wild Earth shows just during the day. And I know not everybody sits and watches it, but a few people that are quite a few people I've spoken to, they'll hear a person's voice or they'll hear leopard, and then they come charging in to just catch all of the action. I specifically love the kids' drives, of course. They are my favorite thing in the whole wide world. I don't know if the last time I was here was just like 2 weeks ago. It was really funny. I didn't realize we were out of the school drive yet. So I continued to speak as if I was talking to children. So I thought all the all the normal, not normal, but all the people, everyone watching was like, why are all the other guides now talking in their normal voice? And Taylor's still speaking to us with very simple language. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh well, they'll just kind of go with it. And I just thought, sure, she really doesn't know anything. But thank you. Also, again, Rosie, it's important. And I think, a lot of people with ADHD do struggle. Some people think it's a completely made up thing. And that's also fine, each to their own. But those of us that do have it know the struggles, trying to concentrate and focus on a task. If it's mundane, we'll never complete it. We'll just keep postponing, and that's a disaster. That's not great. Mindy, you said that I always have it on when you're at home and working. It's the best part of your day. Isn't it great? Like instead of putting just a random series on, you've got nature in the background. And the fact that it is live, that it is happening right now as we speak, I think adds an even more special element to the shows. Vegetation is so thick. Remember a few months ago, staring out across the dam, you could see all the animals moving around. None of these trees had any leaves on them, but it's refreshing. It does make it trickier for us if a leopard goes skulking about. Picking them up is not going to be an easy job. But those of you who are the zoomies of the camera, so that's something else you can also sign up and do. Lots of fun. Control the cameras. How cool. And the way you spot things. And I'm also concerned because sometimes I see there's South Africans that are watching 2 o'clock in the morning. Why are you not sleeping? I totally get for the time differences in the world watching the damn cams. But then I'm like, so and so said there was a leopard on the camera at 2:05 and it was posted at that time. And I'm like, why are you not sleeping? Although to be fair, I should probably do that. But I'm staying right next to the dam. Although I do miss living in a tent with the way that we're able to hear everything so clearly. So I do appreciate your little comment saying we saw a leopard, or I could hear lions roaring, and it sounded like it was coming from this direction because we don't always get to hear that. The sound is a little bit on the soft side. Okay, let's do a change of scenery. I'm going to let Tulu decide where we go. We've got Tembe or we've got Tau. Okay, guess we're going to Tau. Look at that, just in time for the midday rush. A herd of zebra charging on in, a waterbuck, and of course, a couple of elephants and 65 million Egyptian geese. The zebra's turn to have a drink. It's probably taken them ages to make their way down here. They're not particularly fast. They don't seem to want to quench their thirst immediately. It takes a bit of convincing. But a nice sized herd. That's also a great thing that we see at Madikwe. Large numbers of everything, right? Large numbers of geese, good herds of zebra. We see lots of waterbuck around. And when the breeding herds of elephants come through, it's spectacular. Also a place that you're all going to have to visit. You have to get there. Once again, reasonable. Quite affordable in comparison to a lot of camps. There's many different properties you can go and check out. And then, Mindy, you've said that you've learned more from this channel in the 4 years that you've been watching than all of the years of watching wildlife documentary. Nothing beats live wildlife. You're right. I completely agree. But the documentaries have their place. They're fabulous and they're great and they're masterpieces with the way that they're put together. But the stories that they tell are very different. from when we are, narrating while we're live. They add a level of drama, some hooks to keep people watching. And then the thing that frustrates me the most, a lot of the time, those documentaries, it's not filmed in sequence. So, you might have filmed the Pride of Lions doing something one day, and then you film them doing something else 3 weeks later, but that's the first scene that kind of goes into it. So they manipulate stories to obviously benefit the documentary itself. But like I said, it does have its place. I don't watch too many documentaries anymore, just occasionally. I actually like to fall asleep with them, hoping that I'll just absorb some of the knowledge. It doesn't quite work like that, sadly. See, zebras are nervous Nellies at the water's edge, but even the waterbuck picked its head up and had a scan around. Oh, yeah, that was a big kick. Settle. That was an enormous kick. I don't know why we don't see zebras with more scars on them. I mean, they have a lot. But just being careful. So, multiple occasions we see a pride of lions that likes to hang around in this area, and they're so smart. They stick to the tree line. They wait for animals to come down and drink before they make their move, or as the animals start moving towards the tree line again and get a bit closer, then they'll try their luck. So I'd be quite cautious. We think, oh, because it's open, it's fine. Sometimes it's not great to be out in the open either. But the lion stalking animals in an open area like this will be quite tricky. Egyptian geese, get out of the way. More zebras coming down now. The elephants found a different pool of mud. Quite nice. We haven't seen any warthogs, which we normally see plenty of warthogs around here, especially because there's lots of little sausages at the moment. I haven't really been seeing any teeny tiny tots, which is strange. Actually, this morning I yelled out "warthog" while we were on our way back from drive, and oh my goodness, Everett, calm down. And I forgot that there were warthogs on Juma. We hardly ever see them. When we head towards Chitwa Chitwa, though, then we see lots of warthogs that are quite relaxed around the airstrip. That's actually something I need to go looking for, is little warthogs. We need to find a burrow that is being used by warthogs so that when I get out early in the mornings or late in the afternoons, I can go and sit and wait and hopefully get them either leaving or entering the burrows. I know that sounds like such a random thing to do, but it is so much fun. I'm always looking for the stranger things. Sorry about that noise. I was just plugging my computer in before it dies. Can you imagine I disappeared before the show ended? That would be disastrous. I suppose you'd have animals to keep you comfortable, though, and happy. There's a wildebeest that's just popped its head out of the tree line. Looks like it's going back in again. Going down to moving. So not much has changed except a lot of the animals have left, and this elephant has got rather itchy ankles. Just sort of fiddling around in the mud. On the other side, but I'm wondering if we can maybe check out some of the other cameras to just see. We are limited at the moment, but maybe we can pop over to Tembi. We'll see if that is possible. There we go. Here we are. Lots of elephants now. All the bulls have come around. Look at this one, also very itchy. Going straight underneath the camera. Sharp. I don't want to fight with that one, but we're frozen, so we're going to head back somewhere else. I was hoping we'd be able to stay here for a bit. No, we're back. We're back. We're back. That's great. Phew, it was close. And some lovely tuskers. I'm sure those are the same two bulls we had earlier standing in the shade of the tree. Now you can really see how small an impala lamb is next to a big elephant bull. The elephant try spray water at the other elephants. I'd be doing that. I'd be causing absolute havoc. But be careful. If you tease those big boys, you're going to have to face the consequences. I would not like to be on the other end of that. Just also having a look to see if there's any new birds. We've just got the white-faced duck. We've got the hardy-dar ibises. There's some woolly-necked storks earlier too. I'm sure they're around. But otherwise, nothing new. It's a pity. Maybe tomorrow we'll spend some time at Rosie's Pan and see if we can get some of the little bird species. Okay, here we go. Here's something controversial. Who's ready for this? So Cecilia, I don't know. Sorry, apologies. You said, can I comment on the problem of too many elephants in fenced reserves? So there's an issue going on at the moment. This has happened for years and years and years. But what I would first like to talk about before we even move on to elephants being in an enclosed ecosystem, so a fenced reserve, it is so vital that we have these fenced ecosystems because they were once farms. You know, the land was turned from wildlife as we know it, wild areas, to farmland or houses, housing development, whatever the kind of case is. So the fact that we've been able to restore a lot of those areas and turn it back and reintroduce animals that once roamed those places is so important. Now, the greater projects that connects a lot of these reserves is that everybody wants to have one big open ecosystem, but there's always rules, regulations, red tape, big obstacles where people maybe don't want to sell their farms, they want to keep them, and now they can't find a corridor to be able to open up. So it's really not an easy thing. And I think a lot of people don't take all of this into consideration. Then we get the ecologists and conservationists, so conservation officers, that are trying their absolute best to maintain a perfect ecosystem in a reserve that is fenced. I don't think you're able to achieve that, but a lot of these places come close to it. Can you imagine having to play the role of a creator and trying to figure it out, having to take into considerations when there's droughts? We never know when they're going to come through. So I know what everybody is talking about. I'm not going to mention the name of the reserve because there's a big lawsuit going out at the moment, and I think it's a bit unfair because a lot of these parties that are having a go at these closed ecosystem reserves really don't understand what is going on. So from the outside, you need to make sure that you're not jumping onto the bandwagon because everybody's waving their fingers around and pointing their fingers before you understand the situation on that reserve. The thing is that a lot of the information that goes on in a reserve is not available to the public. So everyone could be saying this and that, and they should be that doing those things, and in fact they are doing it. They're just not publicizing it, nor do they systems, it does become a bit tricky. You have to put elephants on contraceptives, which is not great, right? You start to put bulls on contraceptives. It can be devastating to the elephant population, especially if it's a big tusker, because quite often they go infertile. Sometimes it takes them a few years to be able to get over it and then start successfully mating with the females, but it's not great. Look at all the issues that people have today. Let's use women that go onto contraceptives. It quite often, more than not, negatively affects a person. So we've got to take that into consideration as well. What is the other thing that we can do? What? Okay, we'll just shoot all the elephants then, right? We'll cull them. But then everybody's in up in arms. I'm not saying you must do this, but I'm just going through the different issues here, right? So how do we then move the elephants? Nobody wants to have to shoot a whole bunch of elephants, but they have to take these things into consideration. Normally, what happens, they put small populations of elephants on a reserve. There'll be a carrying capacity for a particular amount of space, and they'll try to keep those numbers low. But it's not easy. So you can do that. Moving elephants, my goodness, the stress that those elephants have to go through to be darted and then put in a massive truck and transported is, I don't know if the risks are worth it, right? Unless you're taking elephants and you're repopulating a abandoned wilderness area, that conservation management teams have taken over to try and restore it, then yes, absolutely. But also, because there are so many fence reserves, everybody's got enough elephants and nobody wants to take them. And we can't just start dropping them into these big ecosystems, even these open ecosystems, like at the Kruger National Park, for example. Everybody's like, oh, there's too many elephants, there's too many elephants. But why do we as humans get to dictate about the populations? This is my opinion. This is nothing else. This is how I just feel about it. We're so quick as humans to be able to go, yeah, no, way too many animals. When elephants used to roam with hundreds of thousands of individuals moving, and I always talk about this, from West Africa, traveling all the way to the southeast coast, going into places like Tembe Elephant Park, going up into Mozambique. They don't just feed in one area all the time and decimate the vegetation around them. So even these animals that are able to move around, right, they're still struggling to find food resources. But conservationists are desperately trying to open up new corridors. Again, here's another good example. The conservation project that's going on in Niassa, which is in northern Mozambique. So again, also a forgotten wilderness area. And just north of that, you get Tanzania and you get Nyerere National Park, or Old Sulu Game Reserve. And their goal is to create an entire corridor connecting Southern Africa with East Africa so the elephant populations can go through. And the benefits of that are fantastic, but there's always conflict on the way. So it's not an easy thing to do. So I think before jumping on the bandwagon and starting shouting, yelling, and pointing fingers, we need to take into account how tricky it is to do something along these lines. So look at Botswana. Everyone's like, oh, Botswana's got an overpopulation of elephants. No, but we don't, because the numbers are minute in comparison to what they used to be 70, 80, 90 years ago. And it's relatively not that long ago. So how you've gone from a population of, say, I don't know what the elephant population was that long ago, right? But there's only a few 100,000 of them left now throughout Africa. So it makes me really sad when I hear of these cases. And again, I personally find it's a lot of people, and I'm sure I'm going to get some complaints about this, but I don't really care. That you just need to kind of stay in your lane sometimes and let the conservationists do what they do best. They've studied and they've specialized in these fields for a reason, but just because you don't understand something, it doesn't mean that they are not doing the work. There's always a reason for everything. And then, Mindy, you've actually said, I always try to withhold judgment on things that are happening half a world away from me because I am not aware of how different entities will handle things. And I think that's a good attitude to have. Listen, I get mad and I scream and yell and I shout, and I'm just like, how can they let that go on, right? But I try not to take to social media. Sometimes I do, but I try not to put too much pressure on these conservation organizations. You can bet that they're being asked even harder questions than we can even think about. And those teams have to come together and they have management plans for scenarios like this. But when you get a drought that lasts a couple of years, what are you going to do? Supplement feed the animals? Yes, absolutely. Implement boreholes to make sure that there's water all around? Yes. But elephants eat, we talk about them eating at least 5% of their body weight every single day. And depending on the size of the elephant, it could be 150 kilograms, 200 kilograms of food a day, plant matter. That's very difficult to get your hands on that much vegetation. So it's tough. People are doing the best that they can do. And there are greater plans coming, but it doesn't just take 6 months. Some of these projects might take 5 to 15 years to be successful. But when they are successful, they mitigate through the different channels and problems that they might face, then it's all worth it. But we have to be patient. Mother Nature is really patient, and we as humans need to understand that too. And that the reason why these elephants are in this predicament is because of us and how we have behaved and interacted with the environment, right? A lot of it is because we didn't know the impact that we were going to have. So you can't blame somebody for thinking the way that they did 80 years ago, right? Or 100 years ago. Nowadays, we know a lot more. Technology is fabulous. And yeah, I mean, you can make the point that I'm making. I don't want to go on about it too long, so I'm kind of just going to leave it at that. But like what, hold your judgment, let the professionals do what they best, and it will be a solution. Animals are very different from wild animals. Another thing we can do, why don't we just collect them all? We just put them in cages. Oh, can you imagine how the world would be up in arms about that? So poor conservationists and ecologists are really being set up to fail by the public, which makes me sad. So I'm very protective over conservationists. I do my bit to to make sure that people, understand the difficulties of this job. It's not easy. It's not like being somebody that works in a studio and talks about weather, for an example. Doesn't matter if you get it wrong. No one ever points fingers at you. And then just relax. You said that you agree with me and that you would add that humans are not over that humans are overpopulating the world, not animals. But there we go. That's it. And that's why I get mad when some people will be like, "Don't be ridiculous, Taylor." When we decide when a population of animals is too much or too little, we don't get to do that. It drives me insane. We don't tend to take the historical sizes of these herds of elephants into consideration. We just use recent information. But anyways, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And of course, you're all welcome to have your own opinions. And I encourage you to go and do research before standing up and shouting and potentially looking like a fool. Go and see what the ecologists and the conservationists are saying before the channels that are taking these people on. I can tell you that animals are not being mistreated in the reserves that are being targeted and are spoken about at the moment. They're doing their absolute best. And by going on a safari, you're also helping mitigate these kinds of problems. So keep going on safari. It's the best thing that you can do, or donate to conservation organizations. But it's been great to host live at the waterhole. But I'll be on the live safari this afternoon, so make sure you catch it. And then, of course, I'll be hosting live at the waterhole tomorrow. So thank you for all your questions and your comments. I'll see you soon.